Hello students, welcome to the class. We were discussing about the theories of international trade and we have discussed mercantilism and neo-mercantilism theory of international trade. In the continuation with this, let's move further. Today we are going to discuss the another theory of international trade, that is absolute advantage. Actually, Adam Smith offered his own theory of absolute advantage, and this is the theory which is totally based upon the specialization in production. Let's have a look over this. This theory believed that a nation should specialize in producing only those goods that it can produce at a cheaper cost than that of other nations, and these goods should be exchanged with another goods that are being cheaply produced by the other nations. This trade theory was first indicated the importance of specialization in production, and most importantly division of labor is based on the idea of theory of absolute advantage, which is developed first by Adam Smith in his famous book The Wealth of Nations. Let's understand this theory in detail. According to Adam Smith, there are certain advantages of this theory. The very first is absolute cost advantage. According to him, absolute cost advantage will exist because of specialization of labor. That would in turn leads to higher productivity and less cost of labor. It also leads to economies of scale, as one country would produce one type of goods at a large scale. This will automatically reduce the cost of the goods. Then second advantage is natural advantage. It says that a country would produce those goods that are naturally favoring its climatic conditions. Actually, the type of goods produced would also depend upon the availability of natural resources. And the presence of plenty of natural resources would significantly provide advantage to such a country while producing the goods. The third advantage is acquired advantage. This would include advantage in technology and level of skill development. Actually, this theory is based upon certain assumptions. That the trade is between two countries, only two commodities are traded, free trade exists between the countries, and the only element of cost of production is labor. Actually, the differentiation between the varying abilities of companies and nations to manufacture goods efficiently is the basis for the concept of absolute advantage. Actually, absolute advantage looks at the efficiency of producing a single product. And this analysis helps countries avoid the production of products that would yield little or no demand, which may lead to losses. So, a country's absolute advantage or disadvantage in a particular industry can play an important role in the types of products it chooses to manufacture. Let's understand this thing with the help of one example. If Japan and Italy can both produce automobiles, but Italy can produce sports cars of a higher quality and at a faster rate with greater profit, then Italy is said to have an absolute advantage in that particular industry. Right? And in this example, Japan may be better served to devote the limited resources and manpower to another industry or other types of vehicles, such as electric cars, right, in which it may enjoy an absolute advantage rather than trying to compete with Italy's efficiency. While absolute advantage refers to the superior production capabilities of one nation over another in a single area, the comparative advantage introduces the concept of opportunity cost. Comparative advantage is another theory that we'll discuss in the next session. Let's focus over the absolute advantage theory. Actually, both are interlinked to each other. So, this theory believed that a nation should specialize in producing those goods that it can produce at a cheaper cost than that of the other nations. Right? This is the main, the concept of this theory. Let's have a look over the key takeaways over this theory. What are the gists and how can we summarize the concept of absolute advantage? Let's have a look over this. Adam Smith argued that a country has an absolute advantage in the production of a product when it is more efficient than any other country producing it. Number two important point is countries should specialize in the production of goods for which they have an absolute advantage, and then they should trade these goods for the goods produced by other countries in exchange of other products of any other country. Then third important point is, in economics, principle of absolute advantage refers to the ability of any nation or any individual to produce more of a product or service than competitors using the same amount of resources. Right? And this theory is based upon principle of division of labor. Free trade among countries can increase a country's wealth, and free trade enables a country to provide a variety of goods and services to its people by specializing in the production of some goods and services and importing others. Then every country should specialize in producing those products at cost less than that of other countries and exchange these products with other products produced cheaply by others. And this theory says that when one country produces a product at a lower cost and another country produces another product at lower cost, then both the countries can exchange required quantity and can enjoy benefits of absolute cost advantage. So that was the concept of absolute advantage. But there are certain criticism of this theory. Let's have a look over the criticism. Actually, this theory assumed that only bilateral trade could take place between the nations, and only in two commodities that are to be exchanged. This assumption was significantly challenged when the trade as well as needs of a nation started increasing. And this is one of the drawback of this theory, that this theory did not take into account the multilateral trade that could take place between the countries. Another drawback is this theory assumed that free trade exists between the nations, and it did not take into account the protectionist measures that are adopted by the nations. Protectionist measures means the restrictions over trade. The restrictions over trade between two or more countries. And these protectionist measures were in many forms, like technical barriers to trade, restrictions on trade on account of environment protection, some policy matter, right? So it did not take into account such restrictions, policies, these factors. The next drawback of this theory is that it considered labor as the only cost of production in manufacturing goods, and it neglected other significant elements like transportation cost, like technological cost, right? And it also it became hard for countries to have absolute advantage for many products. So these can be the some drawbacks which are faced by the absolute advantage theory. So let's discuss all these points in detail. Thank you so much.